Tiadit, agus falchigo di, Terra Incogweirdo mokarjas. Hello and welcome to Terra Incogweirdo, my friends. Thank you for being here today for the video about Ouija boards. But before I get started with those stories, I would like to thank all of the Incogweirdos who came out last week to the live premiere chat, and all of you who are here today in the live premiere chat. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your participation. I love all of you, and thanks so much for being here. Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the few experiences that I've had with Ouija boards over the years. Ouija boards are something, I guess technically you could call a Ouija board a divination tool. However, of all the divination tools that I've used over the years, I find Ouija boards the hardest to control. They open an avenue between dimensions, and even if you close that Ouija board down properly, sometimes you've brought things in that stick around, and that's even after you've properly closed out the Ouija board. And I also find that the types of spirits who are drawn to communication on Ouija boards are often trickstery kind of spirits. So, you know, probably not the kind of spirits that you want to talk to if you're looking for factual answers to questions and you're using a Ouija board for divination. So over the years, I've only used a Ouija board a handful of times. So the first time I ever used a Ouija board, I was in middle school. I think I was somewhere maybe 14 years old. And my best friend had one at her house, so we went over to her house to use it. And it was I would call a fairly innocuous Ouija board session. We asked very typical teenage girl kind of questions. At that point in my life, I had never had a boyfriend, and imagine that. Auntie Angie did not draw in the boys like flies. I can't imagine why. But by the time I was 14, I had not yet had a boyfriend, so I wanted to know, will I ever have a boyfriend? And if so, what is his name? And so the Ouija board, the Ouija board said yes, and wrote out the name of my first boyfriend, so that when I did eventually meet this person, and maybe unfortunately for Auntie Angie, it didn't happen for a couple more years. I tell you guys, I really looked like a boy. I was very athletic. I was a semi-professional horseback rider. I was muscular. I did not look like a girl. I didn't have a chest. And I was weird. So it was just not, the boys were not interested. So it took a couple years till Auntie Angie had a boyfriend, but what do you know? The Ouija board was correct. It was off by a couple letters, but when I met the guy, the Ouija board session like popped into my mind, and I'm like, oh man, this is him. Like, I finally met him, and what do you know? This guy liked me. So that was my first boyfriend, who my first Ouija board experience told me about my first boyfriend. So, you know, we used the Ouija board, we closed it out, and there were no ancillary effects or repercussions of any kind, and we never did it again. We just weren't, we just weren't interested in it. So I guess the next time I used a Ouija board, I would have been, gosh, it would have been almost 15 years later. So, yeah, I was like approaching 30 the second time I utilized a Ouija board. And by this portion in my life, in my mid-20s, like early-ish to mid-20s, I started to help people in my family and friends with paranormal disturbances, haunted houses, and anything like that. I started, going in to give advice and try to figure out what was happening, either to the person or in the house or the location. And then I would give advice on things that I thought that the people could do to make the situation livable for them. So this was one of those instances where there's had a very good friend who lived with me, and she had a friend who was having some fairly intense disembodied hand poltergeist activity. And I know everybody who listens to Belief Hole is going to start laughing now, because the disembodied hand trope comes up a lot on Belief Hole. And whenever it comes up, I always mention this in the chat. So my friend, my roommate's friend, okay, my friend was living with me, and her friend was having poltergeist activity that was manifesting as a disembodied hand. Like they would just see a disembodied hand, and apparently the hand was, they had just adopted this feral cat off the street that was just absolutely aggressive and uncontrollable, and they could, like, nobody could touch the cat, but they were trying to gentle it down and get it used to living inside and stuff like that. So this disembodied hand would be seen playing with this feral cat, right? And it happened quite frequently, and the people who lived in this apartment were making the assumption that this was a manifestation of a ghost or a spirit of a friend of theirs who had recently committed suicide. I can't remember if the person actually lived in that apartment or often came to that apartment, but they were almost positive that that this disembodied hand belonged to their friend who committed suicide. So they asked me to come over and try to figure out what was going on in their house. So me and my roommate friend went over to their house, and the feral cat, they put it away in a bedroom. They said because it was so uncontrollable that when people came over, it would attack the people, and just to keep things calm, they were having it was before Halloween, and they were having a Halloween party. So just to keep the animal calm, they kept the cat in another room. So we get there, and they're having their party in one room, and they knew what I was there to do. So they pull out this Ouija board, and they take us into their kitchen where, most everybody was in the living room, so the kitchen was like the quietest spot. And they set down the Ouija board for us on the table, and just, left me and my friend there to do our thing and to see what we could find out. And so we're sitting at this kitchen table, which is pushed up against a wall, and there's this ledge right at about shoulder height, right on the wall right next to the table. And one of the people who lived in the apartment had just had a birthday, so there were all these birthday cards stuck into this this little piece of molding that created this little ledge, like at shoulder height, as I told you. So there's all these birthday cards lined up, and so we're sitting there, and we pull out the Ouija board, and I expressed to my friend that maybe this isn't the best way to go about things, but she was really jazzed and really wanted to use the Ouija board, so I was like, all right. So by that time, I didn't do this the first time I used a Ouija board, but by this time in my life, I knew well enough to chant a little protection spell before we fired up the old Ouija board. So we started asking basic questions, and finally I was like, okay, are you the spirit of the friend who committed suicide? And it went immediately to yes. And I was like, well, are you the one who's playing with the cat? And immediately it went to yes. And this instance of using the Ouija board, I could feel the spirit in the room. And there's something, I don't know if it's just like because they're in a different energetic realm and they can, but spirits, I've noted that spirits often seem to park themselves like in the middle of furniture. So this happened, I think, when I was describing the ghost of Cumberland, Maryland, the anal retentive ghost. Remember her? And that experience when she was moving my beer can closer to a coaster, but she was standing in the middle of the table while she was doing that. Well, the same thing was happening. The spirit was standing in the middle of the kitchen table, and he was literally standing. He was literally like, his projection was like passing through the Ouija board. I could see his form, and so I was like, okay, well, mystery solved. Not that much of a mystery. It's your friend, and no worries. He'll move on when he's ready to move on, and until then, just talk to him and say hello to him. So we kept fooling around with the Ouija board, and there was this guy that I had been seeing, and we had broken up like several months before, and I just couldn't get over this one. I really had feelings for this guy, and I had the sense that he also had feelings for me. And my friend she was really mad at him because he dumped me and he made me really sad. And she was like, just forget about that loser. He's a dummy. He doesn't care about you. And I was like, well, let's ask the Ouija board, right? Who is being piloted by the spirit of these people's friend, who's, he's the disembodied hand guy. So he's the one who's like answering our questions. He's still standing in the middle of the table. Okay. I didn't tell anybody. You get to the point where you learn just not to say everything that you're experiencing at any given time. So we asked the Ouija board, does so-and-so love Angie? And it immediately went to yes. And my friend threw her hands up in the air. So she took her fingers off the planchette. She threw her hands up in the air and she goes, she calls BS, right? Like she screams it. She throws her hands up in the air, calls BS. And right as she does that, one of the birthday cards that's wedged into the molding at shoulder height right next to us comes flying off the wall, and the corner hits her in the corner of her eye right here. And the owners of the house were standing in the doorway watching it, and everybody went, chair knocks over, and I was like, it's like, I told you he loves me. So she's like fighting mad. This girl, I loved her so much. I love her. I haven't been able to find her since I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. She doesn't participate in social media, so she's been impossible for me to find, but she is so awesome. So at this point, she's fighting mad. Because she's like, now the ghost is attacking her. And she's really pissed off. So we're all standing there, and I was like, well, let's devise some sort of, test to see if, the Ouija board, aka the disembodied hand guy, is right about this ex-boyfriend of mine still being in love with me. So we decide that, I can't remember. Yeah, so we decided that what we were going to do was we were going to test it by if they were going to let the feral cat out of the room, right? And if the cat came to me, then it meant that the ghost was correct and my instincts were correct, and this guy still loved me. And everybody was worried because this cat was like so out of control and insane. So I stood up in the middle of the kitchen and through the living room and into the next, you could see the doorway to the bedroom, and it was through the kitchen, through the living room, and then the door to the bedroom. They opened up the door, and that freaking feral cat came tearing out of the room and made a beeline directly towards me, and then cuddled up against my leg and went and just like rubbed against my leg, and everybody in the house was like, whoa. They were like, well, I guess our spirit friend is correct, and your ex-boyfriend is in fact still in love with you, which did end up to be the case. We did get back together again. The incident with the disembodied hand guy and the Ouija board and the birthday card hitting my friend in the face convinced me that I should put myself out on a limb and try to contact him again, which I did, and then we got back together again. Okay, so that was my second experience with the Ouija board. So I guess, let me see, it would have been between 5 and 10 years later that I had my next experience, and by now I was living in Northern California, and some of our relatives had come to visit us at this beautiful old hotel outside of Garberville, California, called the Benbow Inn. Y'all should take a look at it. And if you ever find your way, if you're ever traveling up into the Redwoods and up Highway 101, up into Humboldt County, you should definitely think about staying at the Benbow because it's fabulous and fantastic. So we went to the Benbow to meet our relatives and to have dinner with them there that night. So we were in the lobby waiting for them to come down, and me and my niece noticed that there was a Ouija board over off the side. So we're like, okay, let's just see what's what. So we start using the Ouija board, and immediately we get immediate results, and the spirit that we contacted seemed to be very seemed to be really nice, didn't seem to be trickstery. Like, I didn't get any kind of that vibe. And I started asking questions to the spirit, like, who are you? And the spirit told us that they were a female that used to work at the Benbow Inn, her and her husband, and that she had died, but she loved it here so much that she essentially stayed. And me and my niece and I were like, oh, that's really cool. Like, what's your name? And all that. So we're trying to get to know her. And as we do this, my niece's kids come up and they're like, what are you doing? And we told them what we were doing. And I don't remember if it was both of them or just one of them that, like, loudly said, well, that's BS. There's no such person, and you are not talking to the ghost of somebody who used to work at the Benbow. And my niece and I, at this moment, as like one of her sons is going off on us for using this Ouija board, we're sitting there and we both have our hands on the planchette, and we're looking over at him as he's screaming about how this is BS. And suddenly the planchette flies through the air and hits him square in his breastplate. I mean, it was like somebody propelled it, like somebody hit it out from under our fingers, and it went hard, and it hit him in the chest, and he was standing maybe 3 or 4 feet away from us, and everybody was like, whoa. And I looked over at him and I said, you do well not to disrespect the dead, bro. It was like, she's clearly not happy with you. And me and my niece were like, that was really disrespectful. And then so we put our hands back on the planchette. We apologized, please. We apologized for his behavior, but she would not talk to us anymore after that. So we closed out the session. So those are my most well-remembered experiences with Ouija boards. Now, I've used many forms of divination over the years, and I just don't feel like Ouija boards give you any kind of control, and I feel like you're really opening yourself up to potential hauntings, to ghosts trying to harm you with the planchette, to trickster ghosts leading you astray, to literal demons coming into your house. So Auntie Angie's recommendation on the Ouija board is 2 thumbs down. Don't use a Ouija board. If you really want to engage in divination, well, this entire world is one great big crystal ball. I don't know if you knew that. So if you ask a question to the universe, just ask a question and look around you in the environment, and the answer is there. So you get to learn how to read the construct. The entire construct that we live in is capable of divination. All you have to do is ask the question and put it out there and open your eyes, and your intuition and your senses to receive the answer. That's perhaps a little advanced. So if you wanted to try divination, get a deck of tarot cards. They are a lot more controllable. You're they're soaking up your energy, and they essentially become an extension of you. And I personally have never had an experience where an outward entity took control of my deck and led me astray. That's never happened. Oh, and by the way, I was thinking about doing some live, not just like a live chat premiere like we're doing right now, but live videos where I bring my cards and you guys just ask me questions and we answer them live online. Anybody, if you give me some feedback and let me know if you'd be interested in that, please put it down in the comments below, or email me in and let me know. I figure you're not going to want to give out, ask personal questions, but I mean, we could ask questions about some of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time, are aliens real? Who killed JFK? Anything, like anything. It's kind of when your mind sort of becomes gobsmacked at the potentialities of things we could ask. But anyway, in any case, you guys let me know if you'd like to do that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend tarot cards over a Ouija board any day. And, also scrying is a great form of divination and fairly low risk. However, I would definitely scry into water and not a mirror, because mirrors are portals. And again, that's the same problem with the Ouija board. It's more of a portal, than like reading a deck of cards or scrying into a crystal ball or a plate of water. There's certain forms of divination that actually open a gateway into this between dimensions, and all kinds of craziness can ensue. So if you guys want to use Ouija boards, do so cautiously. Always protect yourself first, and for the love of God, make sure you close out that Ouija board. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. There was one instance where I was contacted by someone who told me that they had summoned a demon through the Ouija board and could not get rid of this entity. These people were not in my physical location, so I could not help them firsthand. But what I told them to do, and what I would say to anyone who's having problems regarding a Ouija board, I told them to take the Ouija board, the box, and all of the pieces of the Ouija board, take it to a church, and to take some of the holy water and sprinkle it with holy water, and then to put it into an iron box, very specifically an iron box, fill the box with rocks, and close up the box with iron chain and an iron lock, and take it and dump it into water. And the elements of, you want this thing, it's got to be submersed, and it's got to be surrounded by iron and then surrounded by water. And if you want to get extra jiggy, you can also put a bunch of salt inside the box with the Ouija board and the rocks that are going to weigh it down to the bottom of whatever body of water you're putting it into. But my understanding is that iron and water are some of the best blocking agents for psychic unwanted psychic energy. So the people did what I instructed, and they reported back that they no longer had any issues with this demon. Okay, so that's just a little bit of advice should you have a Ouija board gone wrong kind of incident. Okay, well, that's about it for the Ouija board stories. However, I am prepared to play Psychic Practice with Purple Mommy. Yay! Whoa, fanfare. Okay, so today I'm going to show you 3 squishmallows. And you're going to guess which one I picked. So I'll show you each one, and then I'm going to stare into the camera. Okay, and then you look at my eyes, and you pull out of my eyes which squishmallow I have chosen, and you write it down in the comments below, and I will respond to all of you who play Psychic Practice with Purple Mommy. Yay! Okay, so your first squishmallow for consideration. Ooh, Scary Jack Skellington. Ooh. Squishmallow number 1, Scary Jack Skellington. Squishmallow number 2. Wait, you have a name, don't you? Banks! Little Banksy. You may not know it, but he's a tag artist. He's a graffiti artist. Little Banks. Okay, little raccoony Banks squishmallow. Doo-doo-doo-doo. And your third choice, hoo-hoo-hoo, Mipsy. What is a Mipsy? I do not know. This is a Mipsy. Okay, so is it Jack, Banks, or Banksy? I gotta call him Banksy. Or Mipsy. Okay, look in my eyes. Okay, which one did I pick? Who did I pick? Jack Skellington, Banksy, or Mipsy? Got it? Okay, write your answers down below. And so that's going to be it for me today, guys. I have been working hard on 2 videos about Leap Castle. It's been so time-consuming, so much research, so intricate that I'm going to have to break it down into 2 videos. One's going to be on the history, and then one's going to be about the paranormal activity and the hauntings. But the history is going to talk about the people and the incidences that show up in the hauntings and the paranormal activity at Leap Castle, the most haunted castle in Ireland. And I tell you what, that is saying something, people. Okay, so tune in hopefully next week for that. Part 1, anyway. All right, well, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I love all you guys, and I hope you're doing really well. And so take care of yourselves, bring the light, and we'll see you next week here on Terra Incogweirdo, the land where Para is normal. Yes, indeed. Para is normal. Here at Terra Incogweirdo. That's right. God, I just kind of went into my Cher accent there, didn't I? Okay. All right, guys. I love you all. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Slán go fall. Bye-bye.